Welcome to Voices from the Abyss. Every week, we descend into another story where the water is dark, the silence is heavy, and not everything waiting beneath the surface has stayed there. So turn the lights down, get on your flippers, and if you enjoy stories that make you afraid to get into the bathtub, don't forget to follow. And if there's a fear, a legend, or a deep-sea nightmare you'd like to hear brought to life, leave it in the comments. You never know. Your idea might be the next one to rise from the depths. Now, take a deep breath. We're going under. A walk along the beach should be peaceful. The sound of the waves, the fading light, a shell buried in the sand. But when Mara lifts a conch to her ear, she doesn't hear the ocean, she hears a voice. And over the next several days, something begins pulling her back toward the water, closer each night, until eventually she remembers why. This is The Call Home. I am a self-proclaimed beach goblin, aka the kind of person who can't walk past a cool rock, an interesting stick, or a seashell without picking it up and deciding that it needs to live in my house forever. I have bowls of this shit everywhere. There's one on my coffee table filled with smooth stones I collected from Lake Superior 3 summers ago. There's a jar of sea glass in my bathroom. There's a piece of driftwood on top of my bookshelf that has absolutely no purpose, but I carried it almost 2 miles because it looked vaguely like a dragon. I don't even do anything with this stuff. Every time someone asks, I call them future craft supplies. I have not crafted with any of them. So when I saw a beautifully intact conch shell sticking out of the sand, there was never really a universe where I wasn't going to pick it up. I'd gone down to the beach after work. It was just one of those days where every person I interacted with seemed personally committed to making my life harder. Nothing catastrophic. Just enough little things stacked on top of each other that by 5:30, I felt like I needed either a long walk or to fake my own death. I ended up convincing myself the beach was the healthier option. It was late enough that most families had already packed up. A few people were still scattered along the shoreline, but the loud part of the day was over. No screaming kids, no Bluetooth speakers, no drunk guy named Brad trying to throw a football 30 yards farther than his shoulder was designed to handle. Just waves, gulls, and the ocean breeze. The sun was getting low, turning everything orange and gold. I walked until the parking lot was barely visible behind me. Then I sat down in the sand to watch the sunset. And then I noticed it. At first, I thought it was trash. Something pale sticking out of the wet sand a few feet from where the water was rolling in. Then another wave washed over it and exposed the spiral. God, it was beautiful. Not the little broken shells you normally find scattered everywhere. This was a full conch, probably about 7 inches long, cream-colored with bands of faded pink curling around it. It was perfect, which probably should have been my first clue. Either way, I picked it up. It was heavier than I expected. Cold, too. Colder than the water. Like it had been sitting in a refrigerator. I brushed sand out of the opening and turned it over in my hands. No cracks. No barnacles. Nothing living inside. Well, at least nothing I could see. I actually laughed to myself. "Okay," I said. "You're coming home with me." Which, in retrospect, feels rude. I sat there for another minute, turning it over, and out of pure reflex, my whimsical adult brain told me to put it up to my ear. And I did. You know what you're supposed to hear. The ocean. Now, technically, I know this isn't actually what's happening. The shape of the shell amplifies ambient noise around you. It isn't storing ocean sounds like some kind of nautical voicemail. I knew that. I was still expecting the ocean. Instead, a woman whispered into my ear, "It's time to come home." I dropped the shell. I mean, immediately. It hit the sand hard enough to bury itself halfway. And for a second, I just stared at it, my heart hammering. There had been no distortion. No vague combination of wind and waves that my brain had turned into words. A woman had spoken. Softly, clearly, right against my ear. I looked around. The nearest person was probably 50 yards away, walking a dog. Nobody was close enough to whisper anything. "Very funny," I said. I don't know who I thought I was talking to. The shell, I guess. And it remained unapologetically a shell. After another minute, embarrassment started replacing fear. Because what was the alternative? Possessed shell? Ocean witch? A tiny woman hiding inside it? I had to have misheard something. Maybe someone shouted farther down the beach. Maybe I was more tired than I thought. So, demonstrating the survival instincts of every person who dies 15 minutes into a horror movie, I picked it back up. I hesitated, then put it to my ear again. Nothing. Just that familiar, hollow, rushing sound. I let out a breath. See? Then something stabbed deep inside my ear. I screamed and ripped the shell away. The pain was sharp enough to make my eyes water. But it vanished almost as quickly as it came. I pressed my hand to my ear, and when I pulled my fingers away, there was a tiny smear of blood on them. That was enough beach for me. I shoved the shell into my tote bag, because apparently, even then, I still refused to leave it, and walked back to my car. By the time I got home, I had convinced myself the edge of the shell had scratched me. I put it on the kitchen counter, took some ibuprofen, and I went to bed. The following morning, I awoke to a headache. Nothing dramatic, just a little pressure around my right temple. The kind of headache you get when you haven't had enough coffee or slept with your neck wrong. My ear felt clogged too, like there was water trapped inside it. I spent half the morning doing that thing where you tilt your head sideways and smack the opposite side like you're trying to get a pick out of an acoustic guitar. Nothing helped. And by that afternoon, the pain had spread behind my eye. I took more ibuprofen. By evening, it was gone. But the next morning, it was back. That went on for 3 days. Headache, pressure, occasional ringing in my ear. Then Thursday morning, I woke up and found sand in my bed. Not a lot, just a pinch of sand. I felt the grit of it under my legs when I moved. And I sat there staring at it for a while. Then I looked down at my feet. Clean. No sand. I checked the floor. Nothing. I checked the dog. Wait, I don't have a dog. That was about when I realized I might still be half asleep. I stripped the sheets, vacuumed the mattress, and decided it had probably fallen out of my hair from the beach. 4 days earlier. Somehow. I wasn't gonna dissect the theory. That night, I called my friend Lauren. Lauren had been my best friend since college and has the deeply annoying habit of being responsible at times when I would prefer enthusiastic validation of whatever insane theory I've developed. I told her about the headaches. Sinus infection? She said. My sinuses are fine. Ear infection? My ear doesn't hurt. You literally just said your ear hurts. It doesn't hurt. It has pressure. That's just a longer way of saying it hurts. Then I told her about the shell. There was a pause. The shell talked to you? I knew I shouldn't have included that part. What did it say? I hesitated. It's time to come home. Another pause. Then very seriously. Well, did you? Did I what? Go home? I was already going home. Maybe the shell was just looking out for you. Fuck you. She laughed. I laughed too. And for a few minutes, it was funny. That helped. The next day, Lauren came over after work. The shell was sitting on my kitchen counter. I hadn't touched it since the beach. Lauren picked it up immediately. Damn, she said. Okay, haunted or not, this thing is nice. Thank you. I risked my life for it. You scratched your ear. Nearly died. She turned it over, then raised it towards her head. Wait, She stopped. What? I don't know if I want you to do that. Lauren stared at me. You think it's cursed? No. Then? You know what? Go for it. She grinned. Excellent. She put it to her ear, exclaiming, "Hello," like a greeting. I watched her face. Nothing happened. She rotated the shell slightly. Still nothing. Finally, she lowered it. Well? Well, what? What did it say? She looked horrified. What did it say? It said, "You're gay." Okay, bitch, very funny. Seriously. It didn't say anything. You heard nothing? I heard shell noises. Shell noises? You know. Whoosh. That's it. Lauren looked at me. Then her smile faded slightly. That's it. I held out my hand, and she gave me the shell. I stared at it. What? She asked. Must have bad reception. Neither of us laughed that time. That night, I threw it away. I wrapped it in 2 grocery bags, took it outside, and dropped it into the dumpster behind my building. I felt stupid doing it. I felt even stupider when I got back upstairs and double-checked the kitchen counter. Empty. Good. I slept better that night than I had all week. The next morning, the shell was sitting on my nightstand. I wish I could tell you I screamed, but I didn't. I just stared at it. And then I said, no. The shell did not respond. Nope. Still nothing. No. Absolutely fucking not. I got out of bed, and there was sand between my toes. My stomach lurched. I looked back at the sheets, and there was more sand. Not much. But this time, there were tiny white flakes mixed into it. I picked one up. It was thin, curved, hard, a fragment of shell. I checked my ear. No blood. Nothing obvious. So I took a picture of the fragment and sent it to Lauren. She called me immediately. You need to go to urgent care. Good morning to you too. I'm serious. So am I. Good morning. Did that come out of your ear? I don't know. Mara. It could have come off the shell, which you threw away. Yes. And which is now next to your bed? Yes. There was a pause. Okay, Lauren said. I officially withdraw my sinus infection theory. The urgent care doctor looked in both ears, then looked again. Everything looks normal. There's no scratch? No. No infection? No redness? No swelling? I explained the pressure, the headaches. I didn't explain the talking conch shell because I enjoy occasionally being taken seriously and not put on a mandatory 72-hour hold. And then he asked if there was any way I could be pregnant, because that would be the obvious reason for an earache. I looked at him with a straight face and said, "Only if silicone can get you pregnant." He looked away immediately, his face turning red, and moved on. He suggested allergies. I asked whether allergies commonly caused seashells to teleport. Well, that one I let stay as an inside thought. I went home with a recommendation for a multi-symptom menstrual pain reliever. By the end of the week, the headaches were worse, and I noticed a distant tone that was stuck in my head. There was a rhythm to it. Low, rising and falling, almost musical. I noticed myself humming along to it while washing dishes. The moment I realized what I was doing, I stopped. The sound stopped too. But then I started hearing other things. At work, I was in the break room making coffee when someone behind me said, "She's almost ready." I turned around. 2 coworkers were standing near the refrigerator. "What?" They both looked at me. "What?" one of them repeated. "What did you just say?" "Nothing." "You said I was almost ready." They exchanged a look. "Neither of us said that." A day later, walking through a grocery store, I heard a man beside me murmur, "Not yet." I spun around. He was talking on his phone. At least, I think he was. Then, "Too dry." I abandoned my cart and I left. The whispers were never jarring. They came casually, from strangers, from people I knew. Sometimes from empty rooms. "She can hear us." "Soon." "Wrong way." "Go back." Once while brushing my teeth, I heard my own voice whisper from the sink drain, "Home." I slept with the bathroom door closed after that. Then the sleepwalking started. The first time I woke up standing in my apartment hallway, barefoot. Not a single idea how I'd gotten there. The second time, I woke up in the stairwell, 3 floors down. The third time, I woke up outside. That scared me enough that I bought one of those cheap indoor security cameras. I positioned it so I could see my bedroom door. The next morning, there was sand in my sheets again. So I checked the footage. At 2:47 a.m., I sat upright, like someone had pulled a string attached to my spine. My eyes were open, but the way I moved, I wasn't awake. I sat there for a minute, and then I turned my head toward the nightstand, toward the shell. I smiled. Not big, just a little. Then I got out of bed and walked out of frame. I watched the clip 4 times. On the 5th, I noticed something. Right before I stood up, my mouth moved. I turned the volume all the way up. Static, fabric moving, breathing. Then my voice, very softly. "I'm coming." I called Lauren. She came over with coffee and the expression of someone prepared to physically fight a ghost. "I'm staying here tonight." No. Yes. I'm not making you babysit me. You're sleepwalking into public. I made it as far as the stairwell. You woke up outside yesterday. The front steps. That's outside. Debatable. It is literally not debatable. She stayed. At 11, we dragged my dresser in front of the front door. At 11:10, Lauren tied a string of bells around the doorknob. I stared at them. What are those supposed to do? Alert me. To what? You leaving. That's your security system? I got them off my Christmas decorations. Great. The supernatural forces of the ocean will never defeat seasonal decor. You mock me now. I absolutely do. We slept in my living room. Or tried to. I woke up at 3:18 in the morning. Lauren was shaking me. Hard. Mara! What? Mara! I sat up. She looked terrified. What happened? You were humming. I wiped my face. So? You weren't breathing. I stared at her. What? You were humming, but you weren't breathing. That doesn't make sense. Hence the shaking. Yeah, you can stop that now. What was I humming? Lauren let go of me and swallowed hard. Then she picked up her phone and pulled up a video. At first, all I heard was a low moaning note. Then another. Long, lonely, familiar. Whales, I said, matching her gaze. She didn't say anything. She played another recording. And then another. Finally, she played the video she'd taken of me sleeping. My skin prickled. It was the exact same pattern. 3 low notes, a pause, 2 rising ones, then a long, wavering sound I'd been hearing in my head for days. I stopped listening. I've never heard that recording before. I know. I don't even listen to whale sounds. I know. Then how? I don't know. Lauren had no reasonable explanation, not even a theory this time. The next morning, there was something on my pillow. Not sand, not a fragment of shell, an impression. A shallow spiral pressed into the fabric beside my head, no larger than a quarter. Lauren saw it too. Until then, there had still been a tiny, desperately hopeful part of me wondering if I was losing my mind. Hallucinations, sleepwalking, stress, something. Lauren touched the indentation. What made that? I already knew. I went to the bathroom, turned my head toward the mirror, pulled my hair back. And at first, nothing looked different. And then I saw it. Just inside my right ear. White, smooth, and curved. I screamed. Lauren came running. What? I pointed. She looked. Her face changed. "Oh, shit! Get it out! Mara! Get it out! I don't think... Get it out!" She grabbed tweezers. I sat on the toilet, shaking. "Hold still." "I am holding still. You're vibrating. Just fucking grab it." She caught the edge and pulled. Pain detonated through every side of my skull. I screamed. Lauren dropped the tweezers. Blood ran down my neck. And then I went silent when I heard something scream back. Not in the room, inside my head. It sounded massive and furious. Lauren backed away. "What the fuck was that?" "You heard it?" Her face went white. That was when I knew we were in trouble. Not because something was inside me, because it had just become loud enough for someone else to hear. I went to the emergency room. CT scan, blood work, everything normal. Except my sodium was slightly elevated. The doctor asked whether I'd been eating a lot of salt. I told him no. But then I realized that wasn't true. For the last several days, I had been salting everything. Eggs, soup, sandwiches. I'd eaten pretzels for dinner twice. I had been drinking pickle juice directly from the jar, which, for me, was unusual behavior. I asked the doctor to look in my ear again. He did. Nothing. The white thing was gone. So I went home, and the shell was waiting on my bed. I picked it up. I don't know why. Maybe I was angry. Maybe I wanted answers. I put it to my ear. The rushing filled my head. Then the woman, closer than before. "It's time to come home." I threw the shell across the room. "Where?" Silence. "Where is home?" The ringing began. That low melody. Without thinking, I whispered, "I know." Memories flooded my brain. I remembered dark water, warm water, a place deep enough that sunlight had never touched it. I remembered voices around me, thousands of them. Not words, thoughts, connected. I remember feeling completely safe. And then it was gone. I collapsed onto the floor, and when I woke up, I was on the beach. Wet sand beneath my cheek, waves touching my feet. I was wearing pajamas. No shoes, no phone. My apartment was 4 miles away. I managed to convince a stranger that I wasn't insane, and they let me use their phone to call Lauren. She found me sitting in the parking lot wrapped in a towel someone had given me. Neither of us spoke much on the drive home. The next night, I slept at her place. I woke up knee-deep in the water. The tide pulled gently around my legs. The beach behind me was empty. The sky was still dark, and I was facing out toward the open ocean. I ran. I got home, grabbed my phone, purse, and keys, and left. I drove inland for 3 hours, and I checked into a motel. No ocean, no beach, no shell. I turned every light on, pushed a chair under the door handle, and put the television on loud. I must have fallen asleep around midnight. When I woke up, my room was dark. My clothes were soaked. The carpet beneath the bed was wet. Salt water dripped from my hair. And beside my face, on the pillow, a perfect spiral. Much larger than before. Almost the width of my palm. I started crying. Not because I was scared. Because I wanted to go back. That realization broke something in me. I wanted the water. I missed it. The motel room felt so wrong. Dry and stale. Too quiet. My skin felt tight. Every breath irritated my throat. And I found myself staring at the bathtub, thinking about filling it, thinking about climbing inside, thinking about putting my face beneath the surface and never lifting it again. I called Lauren. I need you to come and get me. I'm coming. No. What? Don't come inside. Mara. Just stay on the phone. She did. I sat on the floor with my back against the bed for hours. At some point, I started telling her stupid stories from college. Anything to stay awake. Remember that time you microwaved a fork? I did not microwave a fork. You absolutely microwaved a fork. It was in the food. That is still microwaving a fork. It sparked for like half a second. You screamed like you had opened a portal to hell. It was aggressive. We laughed. And for a few minutes, I felt normal. Then Lauren stopped laughing. Mara? Yeah? What's that sound? I listened. At first, I didn't hear anything. But then I heard water. Not through the phone. Inside the room. A slow drip. I looked towards the bathroom. The door was open. The tub was full. I hadn't filled it. Water spilled silently over the edge, across the tile, into the carpet. Something pale sat at the bottom. The shell. Mara? I couldn't answer. Mara, you need to leave. I walked closer to the tub. Mara! The shell looked different. Larger. The opening was wider. And it was dark inside. I could hear the woman without picking it up now. It's time. My ear split open. Pain tore through my skull. I fell against the sink. Something hard slid from my ear and hit the floor. A curved piece of shell, 3 inches long. Blood followed. I stared at it. And then I looked in the mirror. My right ear canal was different. Beneath the blood and torn flesh, it looked pale and rigid, spiraling inward. I screamed. The sound that came out was a split between my voice and that damned whale song. The motel lights went out. The phone disconnected. And everything after that comes in pieces. Walking, cold pavement, my bare feet bleeding, the smell of salt, the sound of waves growing louder, the moon reflecting across the black water. And then, nothing. I woke kneeling on the ocean floor. I knew I was underwater before I opened my eyes. There was pressure around me, weight, movement, my hair floating around my face. I opened my mouth and water rushed in. I panicked. My body convulsed as I tried to cough. But instead of drowning, I breathed. Water moved through me, not into my lungs, through something else, something that opened beneath my jaw and fluttered. I touched my neck, slits. I screamed, but only bubbles came out. The last bit of oxygen in my body. I tried to kick upward, and then I sank back down like a brick of cement. I couldn't see the surface. The water above me was black like an abyss. Except there was a faint pale glow somewhere ahead. I looked behind me. There was nothing. No shoreline, no lights, no sign of the world I knew. The glow ahead pulsed, slow and soft, like breathing. Then something moved. It was as if a mountain rose from the ocean floor right in front of me. I couldn't comprehend it entirely. I could only see pieces. A curve disappearing into darkness, pale folds, and covering its surface, shells. Shells the size of coffins. Thousands of them. Conches, spirals, pale pink mouths opening and closing, each one whispering. The sound filled the water, filled my skull. Children, men, women, a beautiful chorus of voices layered over themselves until they became one enormous thought. Home. My legs moved. One step, then another. The closer I got, the warmer the water became. And worse, the happier I felt. Relief spread through me. The headaches disappeared. The pressure vanished. For the first time in weeks, Everything inside my mind became quiet, not empty, connected. I could feel something touching my thoughts, not invading, recognizing, like fingers fitting into a hand. I remembered things that had never happened to me. Black trenches beneath ancient oceans, continents arranged differently, storms passing above while something enormous slept below. Thousands of voices arriving, one by one, coming home. I tried to hold on to Lauren, my apartment, my stupid bowl of rocks, coffee, sunlight, anything. But every memory felt distant, small, and temporary. A single shell near the center of the creature opened wider than the others. Inside, a woman's face. Human, almost. Her skin was pale and translucent and partially fused to the inside of the shell. Her eyes opened. She looked directly at me and smiled. I knew that voice. The one from the beach. The one that had whispered through the shell. She spoke to me. Not out loud, but inside all of us. There you are. I stopped fighting, because suddenly I remembered. Not everything, just enough. Enough to understand why the ocean had always claimed me, why the shell had felt cold in my hands, why I'd known the song, why some impossible part of me had recognized that voice before I'd ever heard it. I looked down. A pale spiral had begun forming beneath the skin of my chest, slowly turning outward, growing. I should have been horrified. And maybe some part of me still was. But beneath that fear was something older. Something relieved. I took another step toward her. And as the darkness folded around me, I heard Lauren's voice somewhere far away, calling my name. I wanted to answer. I really did. But there were so many voices now. And for the first time, I knew all of them. The woman smiled. The shells opened. And I smiled back. I was home. Thank you for listening to Voices from the Abyss. If tonight's story stayed with you, click the follow button to make sure you never miss what surfaces next. Until next time, sleep well, and remember, not every abyss is underwater. Good night.